Hi, Pip here from queenpipcards.com. If you are watching this as part of my class in a box, we're on to card number 2. If you're just watching this because I've released it, then welcome. And today we're talking Painted Harvest and the Painted Autumn Suite. So this card uses the stamp set, the Designer Series paper, and it also uses the punch that is part of the bundle, but it also uses the Layering Leaves embossing folder, the deep one. So just to give it a little bit of pop, and I thought actually that was a nice, it goes really well with this leaf punch. It's the same design actually on some of the leaves here as it is on the leaf punch. So that's what we're making. So the first, obviously if you've got it in your kit, then you will have your base layer already done for you. Otherwise you would run 2 pieces of cardstock through the embossing folder. This is 9.5 by 13.9 for both of those layers, and then the piece of the Painted Autumn, I was right the first time, Designer Series paper. This is 3 by 4 I think in terms of 3 by 4 in terms of inches, so that makes that 7.5-ish by 10-ish, just a bit over 10, just a bit over 7.5 in centimetres. Okay, so you're going to be first of all stamping and punching. So obviously Stampin' Up is designed around coordination, and everybody thinks of their coordination mainly as being the colours, and you can't argue with the fact that the paper and the Designer Series paper and the cardstock and the ink and all the embellishments, they all match beautifully, and they are all exactly the same colour, or tone of the same colour, so that they coordinate. So that's beautiful, and absolutely I love Stampin' Up because of that coordination, but I also love Stampin' Up because of this coordination, and that's the fact that you can stamp and then use their punches or dies to cut things out, and to me that is another genius coordination idea. So we're going to take your lemon lime twist piece of cardstock. This is just a scrap that you need, that you're going to cut your punch your leaves out of. I'm using garden green, and I'm just using the skeleton one. Okay, so not the more solid stamp, but the skeleton one, the step 2 of the 2-step stamping. And we need 2 of these. So I'm just going to stamp those in the garden green, which looks fabulous on the lemon lime twist, and then I'm just going to punch them out. Now I always turn my punch up this way. Obviously this way you can see what the punch is, but this way you can see where it's punching. And so as you feed your image in, you can see where it is. Always give yourself enough to hold here. There's nothing worse than trying to fiddle around with a bit of cardstock that doesn't fit. And always make sure that this lever is up, because then it's not catching when it comes down. What you can do is you can, if you're comfortable enough holding it, is you can hold it halfway down. So you can see I've got some pressure on my thumb, but it's not enough to punch it out, but it is enough to kind of hold it in place, she says, with it moving. But it's there, but it's not quite. So this then allows you to look at it again, make sure you're happy with it. Obviously I'm looking at it from an angle, so I wasn't really happy with it. There we go, so now I'm happy, and then you can then punch down. And I always try and punch with 2 thumbs, mainly because it helps with people who find it hard punching with one hand, but also because it means you're not just pressing on one side of the punch. There are springs in here, which is what you're pushing down on to punch out with. So if you punch just with one hand, over time, I believe that's what sometimes makes your punches go a bit stiff or a bit skewiff, is because you've been punching just with one hand. So either that side or that side, just punching down. But if you punch together, it goes straighter. It goes, the mechanism goes straight up and down like that, rather than one-sided. You can see when if I punch like this, you can see it's not closing correctly, whereas if I punch like this, it's punching straight up and down. So that's my tip on punching for the day. And meanwhile, I've managed to punch out 2 of my leaves, so that's great. So I'm going to just start assembling this now, because we only need to do the sentiment as well. So this I'm going to just fold in half. This is the new thick, I'm so glad they brought this out to complement the Whisper White. This is the thick Very Vanilla, and it is lovely. It's a really nice card base weight, and it means it just pops, shows off everything else beautifully. So we have our layers. Now remember, I don't stick anything down until I'm ready, so I just want to make sure that I've got everything I need, and then I look at it and go, oh, I'm missing my trim. So this piece of trim has to go right behind all of that, so I know that I can't stick those down or can't stick my base down until I've done my trim. So this is how I build my cards up, so I know how it's going. And we all know that I love my fast views. I mean, it's so easy to use. Oops. When it gets itself, even if it gets itself a little bit stuck, you just have to release that on, and it's just marvellous. Work out which way up you want your sunflowers to be. That way or that way. Yeah, that way's fine. Okay, and then pop that down. That just goes straight onto your base layer, and then using your grid paper. Oh, I've lost my light. Oh no, my battery's dead. Hang on. Is that a bit better? Yeah, that's a bit better. Okay, I don't have a battery for that one, so we're just going to have to go with it like this. I think that's fine. Okay, so working out where your, so let's just, I'm just going to carry on with that. Working out where my ribbon needs to go. I want it to go across this dark line here. So if I just flip that over using my grid paper, then I know I need to put my fast views along there. Now this is the only time I'll tell you to be very careful with fast views, is when you're running it over the top of a piece of embossed card, and that's because the embossing has broken the fibres in the card, so they can lift. So just occasionally I've done my fast views, pulled it off a bit too quick, and some of my cardstocks come away with me, so just be careful of that. So I'm just going to layer my vintage ribbon over that, round the front. See, now I know exactly where it needs to go, so that's fine. And then bring it back over here. There we go. Just check it. Good. So that's now on there. And I decided to do mine this way up. You could do it the other way up actually, because this is kind of a frilly edge and this is a scalloped edge. But I did it that way up. I like it that way. So it's probably supposed to go the other way, but you know, it's my card. I can do what I like. Okay. So at this point, this is when I would now attach this to my base, and again you'll see I'm being very careful with my fast views on this. Don't lift it too quickly. There we go. Because it's got fast views underneath the ribbon, I don't actually bother to put anything over the top of my ribbon. Okay, and then we've got this, and this is going to go in here. There we are. Perfect. Whoops, there we go. Yeah, don't pull the ribbon off. Right, I don't need to actually stick that down because we're going to cover it with the sentiment. So the next thing we're going to do is the sentiment. This is punched. If you got the kit, it's already punched for you. If you are making this at home, then you need your everyday, no, this is your Label Me Pretty punch. So, or actually it might just be called Pretty Label Punch. Which came out in the annual catalogue as new this year. So we're going to just stamp on that, and you notice I'm not using my pad. Normally I would use my stamp pad, but for sentiments, if they're small enough, actually this one I might use my pad, but like for those leaves going on the cardstock, or for a sentiment that's tiny, you can generally get away with it, but for a larger one you might want to use your Pierce mat. Okay, so let's just pop that about there. That's where I want it to be. Oh, release that off. There you go. That's nice. That's come out perfectly. And then I'm going to stick my leaves down to my card. See, these are stuck down to the base layer. So I need to kind of position where I'm going to be putting that, and then decide where I want to put my leaves, and then I'll put my glue down actually on the base. So again, it's all about building your card up from the bottom up, really, working out where you want to have things, and then taking the top layer off and thinking, okay, that's where I need to put my glue. So just on that little leaf there, I'm going to put a piece of fast fuse down and pop these in. And it doesn't matter that it's a bit sticky, because, you know, it's going to be covered up anyway by the sentiment, so that's perfect. Now I'm just going to pop on, what have I done with that? It's here somewhere. Okay, here we go. So these are the little enamel shapes, and I really love them, and I've used them on this one. I've just used the heart on this one because I'm thankful for you. So again, I line up my sentiment, make sure I'm happy. I'm a bit OCD. You don't have to be this OCD. You can just whack it on and go for it. And sometimes I do, but sometimes I'm a little OCD about things. So I know my own faults. And then on the back of that, obviously, you're going to put some dimensionals. Get that going. And I am not frugal with my dimensionals. I want this to be A, not squished, and B, stay on. And if you just put, I've seen people just put one dimensional in the middle, and it's like, what is the point of that? It's not gonna do your card any favours when it goes through the post and it arrives all squished. So there we go, pop those on there, and that's your second card done if you're in the class, or your first card done if you're just following along this at home. Right, so that's that one. I hope you like that one. Come back soon, I'm sure I'll have more, either with this set or with something else. And if you're in the class, hop on over and check out the next video. Thank you.